Hi there, Davison here. I make various reaction videos live on this channel. We are talking about the bombshell that the New York Times dropped this morning. Now, YouTube may mess up the first few seconds of this broadcast, so just bear with me for another 10 seconds until I can get going. And I'm going to repeat my intro again, but we're going to get right into it. So, one more second. So hi again, my name is Davison. I make various reaction videos on this channel. And as I said at the beginning of this broadcast, the New York Times dropped a bombshell this morning by publishing an anonymous article from an anonymous source inside of the Trump administration. Basically, this person disclosed that there are people working within the current Trump administration that are opposing his worst inclinations, that they're reining in his tyrannical way of basically managing the country. And a lot of what Trump does flies in the face of the American Constitution, and it's very much anti-democratic and dictatorial, as we have witnessed. So I'm going to read part of the article. It's really worth listening to. So, I work for the president, but like-minded colleagues and I have vowed to thwart parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. And then the Times wrote, the Times today is taking the rare step of publishing an anonymous op-ed essay. We have done so at the request of the author, a senior official in the Trump administration, whose identity is known to us and whose job would be jeopardized by its disclosure. We believe publishing this essay anonymously is the only way to deliver an important perspective to our readers. We invite you to submit a question about the essay or our vetting process here. Okay, so that's just a link. So we're going on to reading the article. Moving on. President Trump is facing a test to his presidency unlike any faced by a modern American leader. It's not just that the special counsel looms large, or that the country is bitterly divided over Mr. Trump's leadership, or even that his party might well lose the House to an opposition hell-bent on his downfall. The dilemma, which he does not fully grasp, is that many of the senior officials in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. I would know. I am one of them. To be clear, ours is not the popular resistance of the left. We want the administration to succeed and think that many of its policies have already made America safer and more prosperous. But we believe our first duty is to this country, and the president continues to act in a manner that is detrimental to the health of our republic. That is why many Trump appointees have vowed to do what we can to preserve our democratic institutions while thwarting Mr. Trump's more misguided impulses until he is out of office. The root of the problem is the president's amorality. Anyone who works with him knows he is not moored to any discernible first principles that guide his decision-making. Although he was elected as Republican, the president shows little affinity for ideals long espoused by conservatives: free minds, free markets, and free people. At best, he's invoked these ideals in scripted settings. At worst, he has attacked them outright. In addition to his mass marketing of the notion that the press is the enemy of the people, President Trump's impulses are generally anti-trade and anti-democratic. Don't get me wrong, there are bright spots that the near ceaseless negative coverage of the administration fails to capture: effective deregulation, historic tax reform, a more robust military, and more. But these successes have come despite, not because of, the president's leadership style, which is impetuous, adversarial, petty, and ineffective. From the White House to executive branch departments and agencies, senior officials will privately admit their daily disbelief at the commander-in-chief's comments and actions. Most are working to insulate their operations from his whims. Meetings with him veer off topic and off the rails. He engages in repetitive rants, and his impulsiveness results in half-baked, ill-informed, and occasionally reckless decisions that have to be walked back. There is literally no telling whether he might change his mind from 1 minute to the next, a top official complained to me recently, exasperated by an Oval Office meeting at which the president flip-flopped on a major policy decision he'd made only a week earlier. The erratic behavior would be more concerning if it weren't for unsung heroes in and around the White House. Some of his aides have been cast as villains by the media, but in private, they have gone great lengths to keep bad decisions contained to the West Wing, though they are clearly not always successful. It may be cold comfort in this chaotic era, but Americans should know that there are adults in the room. We fully recognize what is happening, and we are trying to do what's right even when Donald Trump won't. The result is a two-track presidency. Take foreign policy. In public and in private, President Trump shows a preference for autocrats and dictators, such as Vladimir Putin of Russia and North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, and displays little genuine appreciation for the ties that bind us to allied, like-minded nations. Astute observers have noted, though the rest of the administration is operating on another track, one where countries like Russia are called out for meddling and punished accordingly, and where allies around the world are engaged as peers rather than ridiculed as rivals. On Russia, for instance, the president was reluctant to expel many of Mr. Putin's spies as punishment for the poisoning of a former Russian spy in Britain. He complained for weeks about senior staff members letting him get boxed into further confrontation with Russia, and he expressed frustration that the United States continued to impose sanctions on the country for its malign behavior. But his national security team knew better. Such actions had to be taken to hold Moscow accountable. This isn't the work of the so-called deep state. It's the work of the steady state. Given the instability many witnessed, there are clearly whispers within the cabinet of invoking the 25th Amendment, which would start a complex process for removing the president. But no one wanted to precipitate a constitutional crisis. So we will do what we can to steer the administration in the right direction until, one way or another, it's over. The bigger concern is not what Mr. Trump has done to our presidency, but rather what we as a nation have allowed him to do to us. We have sunk low with him and allowed our discourse to be stripped of civility. Senator John McCain put it best in his farewell letter. All Americans should heed his words and break free of the tribalism trap with the high aim of uniting our shared values and love, or with the high aim of uniting through our shared values and love of this great nation. We may no longer have Senator McCain, but we will always have his example, a lodestar for restoring honor to public life and our national dialogue. Mr. Trump may fear such honorable men, but we should revere them. There's a quiet resistance within the administration of people choosing to put country first, but the real difference will be made by everyday citizens rising above politics, reaching across the aisle, and resolving to shed the labels. I wish I could have gotten that perfect. But the real difference will be made by everyday citizens rising above politics, reaching across the aisle, and resolving to shed the labels in favor of in favor of a single one. Americans. That's a profound statement. Let's read it one more time. The real difference will be made by everyday citizens rising above politics, reaching across the aisle, and resolving to shed the labels in favor of a single one. Americans. The writer is a senior official in the Trump administration. Okay, so I read the whole thing. So as you can see, that's a whole lot of information to take in, but it just confirms what everybody's already been saying about Trump. We've all been saying that he's unstable. We've all been saying that his behavior is erratic. We've all been saying he's dictatorial. We've all been saying he's unreasonable. We've all been saying that he's a poor leader. But yet nothing has really been done on the outside to remove his power or to change the way that he behaves as president. And I guess that's because, as they disclosed in the letter, nobody wants to invoke a constitutional crisis by invoking the 25th Amendment. They probably rightfully forecast that could lead America into a form of civil war, at minimum civil unrest. So they would rather rein in Trump as much as they can. Though, in a way, I have to say this feels like a soft leak of impeaching Trump or removing him from office. You know what I'm saying? They're like, well, we don't want to remove him from office because we're afraid to remove him from office, but yet we're going to disclose this to the New York Times and get that idea out into the court of public opinion or the public consciousness. So I feel like that maybe is a possibility still, that they'll invoke the 25th Amendment. And they're just using this New York Times article as a means of taking the temperature of the room in America. So, I mean, it is disheartening to see that he has made the country so divided, but it's heartwarming to see that there are reasonable Republicans, which I have always said. I do not think all Republicans are unreasonable. Just like I don't think all liberals are reasonable. I guess I am more politically moderate, so I can, I take what I believe is positive policy from both sides, and I try not to demonize one side or the other. But it is very easy and very rational to demonize Trump, given the way that the man behaves. And now he's reacted to this, of course, on social media. What Donald Trump said on social media is, does the so-called senior administration official really exist? Or is it just the failing New York Times with another phony source? If the gutless anonymous person does indeed exist, the Times must, for national security purposes, turn him or her over to government at once. Okay, Mr. Dictator, so you don't want there to be freedom of the press? You think that you are supposed to be immune to criticism as president of the United States? Did you forget about freedom of speech? Did you forget that this is a democracy, Mr. Trump? It's because you don't want it to be a democracy. Again, you are a dictator. You are an autocrat. And you are definitely an egomaniac. And the person does not need to be turned over for saying that you need to be reined in. They're merely offering very valid and fair criticism. It's unbelievable. You don't deserve to call yourself a conservative, Mr. Trump. You don't. You don't. Okay, I'm going to go over to what you guys are saying. So, hi, John. Hi, Tad. It's hi. Kevin says, Trump is despicable, and those in Congress who have been silent are also despicable. They all must go. Well, I think some of the members of Congress haven't really, quote unquote, had a choice. Their hands have been somewhat tied, not to excuse their lack of resistance, but you have to understand how delicate this situation is and how explosive Trump is, right? So I think everyone's walking on eggshells, so to speak. And I think that op-ed echoes that sentiment. Ultimate Ninja says, better than a socialist like the last president. No, I'm sorry, I respectfully disagree with you. Brad Roberts says, I would ask the same question, Ultimate Ninja. Well, I don't agree with you either, Brad. Kevin says they won't remove him because they have no balls. No, I think they won't remove him because, again, they don't want to provoke a civil war. They don't want to provoke civil unrest. So they would rather just try to limit his toxicity as best they can, but they're disclosing his toxicity. Again, this is one of those, like, kind of not a backhanded compliment. There's a term for that where you say what you want to say by pretending you're saying the opposite. We don't really want to invoke the 25th Amendment. So that's why we haven't, but they're saying that maybe that should be a possibility. So this person is putting it out there. By the way, the people who have denied writing the op-ed so far, but why would the person ever admit it? They won't, are Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Dan Coates, James Mattis, Christian Nielsen, Jeff Sessions, Ben Carson, Stephen Mnuchin, or Mnuchin, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Stephen Mnuchin, Nikki Haley, and Sony Perdue. The reason why Trump is inferior to President Obama is his lack of diplomacy. It's his lack of good leadership. It's his inclinations towards dictatorial, autocratic behavior. It's his inability to form positive trade relationships. It's his lack of long-term thinking or planning. It's his flip-flopping. It's his lies. It's his aggressivity. He's not a noble leader. He's an embarrassment. Obama was so articulate, and Obama wasn't perfect, but he was at least respectful, articulate, and seemed to be really weighing the issues with a rational mind, versus Trump governs on impulse. And he capitalizes on the weaker members of the Republican Party's worst inclinations, being he appeals to their negative emotions and their racism, as opposed to what is best for everyone. He's a divisive man. He is not a great leader. He would be a great dictator, I suppose, but he's not a great leader. Although to be a great dictator, you have to actually be able to control the people around you. And apparently he's failing at that. So Tony says our reply is falling down. Kevin says Obama was a brilliant president with morals. Trump is the exact opposite. So the United States is not a democracy. Yes, it is. It is a constitutional republic. Yeah, but its system is democratic because people are elected. Did you guys read the article? I mean, I read it aloud. I think it appears as if the majority of the people that are here are my followers. I mean, I hope that those who find this broadcast, post-broadcast, will fast forward to this point to hear my opinions. I mean, there's nothing else more to say other than it's a bombshell, other than the idea of the 25th Amendment was brought up. Sorry, let me just look up the rhetorical device of without saying it. Saying what you want to say without saying it. So it's called apophasis. Paralepsis. There you go. Yeah, that's what it is. Apophasis or paralepsis, which is apophasis can be used passive aggressively as in, I forgive you for your jealousy, so I won't even mention what a betrayal it was. So saying what you want to say without actually saying it. And it's a rhetorical device. There you go. For my own personal satisfaction, I had to bring that up. T. Lee says, race baiting is an old tactic used by people to sell out their own people, at least economically and historically. Racism is not really real. The diabolic behavior is real and normalized. I don't know what to say to that. That's I mean, I believe that racism is something that is very real. What are you referring to? You'll have to elaborate, T. Lee. In what respect are you? What are you addressing? Let the man be president? No, you don't sit there and tolerate intolerable and undemocratic circumstances. Nobody should tolerate a bad leader because it leads to a bad outcome for the nation. It leads to civil unrest. It leads to social unrest. Okay, so what if he doesn't fuck up how much money the United States is making? It doesn't fuck up the economy. If he fucks up society and interpersonal relations, you're much worse off long-term as a nation, which is what the New York Times editorial brought up, that we can't just be partisan anymore. We have to come back to all uniting as Americans. But we have a very divisive, irrational, juvenile, dictatorial leader right now. I mean, Trump just praised Kim Jong-un today on his Twitter. Kim Jong-un of North Korea proclaims an unwavering faith in President Trump. Thank you to Chairman Kim. We will get it done together. Get what done together? Get what done together? Just tweeted that. Kim Jong-un killed and continues to kill many of his citizens. There's a huge famine right now in North Korea. There's a lot of disease. Yet Trump thinks it's good to have a positive review from Kim Jong-un. No, Donald Trump, if Kim Jong-un likes you, that means it's not a compliment. That means it's a loser who's identifying with another loser. Yeah, Wall Street nailed it. Trump is a populist that lives with the average Joe's inner phobe. Exactly. He's I mean, he is a president that appeals to the lesser educated. He is a president that appeals to people with emotional limitations or juvenile emotional impulses. Ones that are driven by the ego. Me, I need to protect me and my personal interests. And oh no, someone's going to hurt me. I shouldn't accept outsiders. Oh, because I have to pay for, I don't want to pay for someone else's medical care. It's about me. I want to save my money. That's the type of person that supports Trump wholeheartedly without criticism. I am Canadian. Who cares, Andreas, if the tracking poll says he's still fine? Who cares? This isn't about public opinion. This is about criticizing him as a leader. Kevin says 39% is not fine. I think polls are flawed because they don't poll enough people. And if they're polling people on the telephone, that's like how many people now have landlines, right? They're polling a much older demographic. I wish we had better leaders like you, Davison. Well, I don't foresee myself getting into politics. I might be a bit of a newsie, but I am no politician. I'm more of an artist and a free thinker than I am I mean, who knows? Maybe in 10 years, I'll change my mind. But right now, I don't think, I mean, I think I could do my best to try to lead a country or a city. And I would do it with the best intentions and I would educate myself, but I don't think it's my passion and I don't think it's my natural role. Oh, thank you, Wall Street. So Teely says, we need diversity in politics and leadership. You are very compassionate and real and bring a whole lot to the table. Well, thank you. I think it's interesting that people here that think that once a president is elected, that they are above criticism. Why are you guys saying that? Is it because of what you were taught by your parents, that you shouldn't question leaders, what you were taught in school? You buying into his line that the press is too hard on him? They're not. They've been reporting facts and they've been unbiased as they can in a lot of circumstances, not in all circumstances, but in a lot of circumstances. So Big Bub says they're protecting the traditional interests that they feel are important, just like some try to protect the traditional social gender and dating roles. Okay, I mean, I think I've said almost all I can say to this. Or say about this issue right now. I'm going to just look and see if there's any more updates. Op-ed and on Twitter. Okay, so some woman said you really should resign. Perino calls out White House official who authored the New York Times op-ed against Trump. So John Harvard said a pretty obvious point, but anonymous New York Times op-ed writer affirmed from inside the Trump administration everything Hillary Clinton said in 2016 about Trump's fitness for presidency. It's a false, illogical, and gutless op-ed. No, it's not illogical. It's very logical. It's not gutless. It takes a great amount of guts to come out against a tyrant like Trump. It's so amazing that people will be so disingenuous. People don't even believe their own bullshit. They're just doing it for strategic reasons. They're doing it for power reasons. They like the way, say, Trump is feeding their stock portfolio, so they'll say anything. They'll outright deny the nuances of the article or its good point or its valid points, and reduce it to nothing. It's just so unreasonable, so transparent. Daniel, I'll have to address that in another live stream. I'm keeping this fairly on topic. So nothing to retort about what I said, Big Bub. Protecting those traditional interests like they feel are important, just like some try to protect traditional social, gender, and dating roles. Well, I don't know what you want me to respond to, Big Bub. People protect their own self-interests, but this is beyond just the self-interests of Republican policy. This is about the well-being of a nation and about refusing to tolerate a toxic leader who's belligerent publicly and who's obviously erratic internally, which leads to chaos. He's not the best choice for president of the United States of America. He's not the best leader. So I think people's minds are not strong, says T. Lee, and they can't help it. So they're just under all these influences put out there since they do not resist or question enough. That's absolutely right. Back to what I said, like a lot of people are socialized in school to never question authority, which is why they think that we should just accept Trump as he is. Or a lot of people are anti-confrontational because their parents taught them that confrontation is unacceptable or not useful. Okay, so thank you for watching. I'm going to let you guys go. I'll come back for another live stream later. I want to end on this note. Let's see what the fallout of this will be. I mean, I don't think they're going to figure out who the op-ed writer is, but part of me wonders whether or not there might be some sort of crisis at the New York Times. I'm sort of afraid for the offices of the New York Times. I hope nobody does anything crazy, like that's violent, because sometimes that's the effect of publishing something highly political and polemical. That there will be some form of like physical backlash, like what happened with Je suis Charlie, that French magazine. Is that what it was called? Je suis Charlie. What was the name of what is the name of that publication? Charlie Hebdo. So you know what happened when they published the image of that Muslim with the bomb in his turban, or that doesn't make any sense. Turban is Sikh, but what was it? Something the bomb and Islam. I forget the cartoon. I forget what it was, but then there was retaliation. So I guess I'm just sort of slightly concerned there will be some sort of actual physical retaliation against the New York Times, but that remains to be seen. And it also remains to be seen whether or not the 25th Amendment will be invoked. Was Muhammad? Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I feel like I didn't see the cartoon more than once, or it wasn't published everywhere, or there were publications that refused to publish it. Okay, well, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day. Bye.